Hello students, this is Santosh Jood from Parthiyank Mathematics Institute, Ahmedabad. Parthiyank Institute is presenting to you the solutions of the mathematics part of the NTA test papers. In this video, I will take you through the solutions of NTA test paper number 3. Let us begin. The first question. The probability distribution of a random variable x is given as, and they have given us a table. This is usually called the probability mass function. Compute the value of p. Now this question is based on the fact that summation of all the probabilities should be equal to 1. So very straightforward problem. P plus 2p plus 3p plus 4p plus 5p plus 7p, 6 is missing, 8p plus 9p plus 10p plus 11p and 12p is equal to, if you add p and 12p is 13, 2p and 11 is 13, 3 and 10 is 13, 4 and 9 is 13, 5 and 8 is 13. So 5 13s are 65p and I have a 7p which is 72p. Now this should be equal to 1. So p is nothing but 1 upon 72, which is option A, 1 upon 72. Very straightforward problem. Sum of total probability, all the probabilities is equal to 1. Question number 2. The lengths of two adjacent sides of a cyclic quadrilateral are 2 units and 5 units, and the angle between them is 60 degrees. If the area of the quadrilateral is 4 root 3 square units, then the perimeter of the quadrilateral is, let us call this the cyclic quadrilateral ABCD. Let us give some names to these sides. Let this be A, B, C and D. We are given two adjacent sides are 2 and 5 and the angle between them is 60 degrees. And since it is a cyclic quadrilateral, we know this opposite angle should be 120 degrees. Okay. Now we need to find C and D in order to find the perimeter. For that we need two equations. So the first equation will make use of the fact that the total area is 4 root 3. And to get the second equation, we will try to make use of the fact that this side, this length, let us say this is E, in triangle ADC and in triangle ABC should have the same value. Okay. So the first, the area of ABCD should be equal to area of triangle ABC plus area of triangle ADC. Now area of any triangle can be written as half into the sides, product of the sides into the sine of the angle between those two sides, right? So we will use this expression for area of a triangle. So total area is given as 4 root 3 square units. Area of ABC is half 2 into 5 into sine 60 and area of ADC is half C into D into sine 120. So 4 root 3 is 5 into square root of 3 upon 2 plus 1 by 2 into square root of 3 upon 2. So it is CD square root of 3 upon 4. Alright. So let us cancel the square root of 3 on all sides. Multiply the whole thing by 4 and we would get 4 4s are 16 is 10 plus CD, or CD is 6. Let this be one equation. Now the other equation, as I told you, is based on the property of the triangle. We will try to find this side E using A, B, C and D. Sorry, this is D and this is C. Let this angle we know is 60 degrees and this angle we know is 120 degrees. Now we have this very interesting law of cosines, right? In a triangle, if you have a triangle A, B, C and this would be angle A, this would be angle B and C, then C squared can be written as A squared plus B squared minus 2AB cos C, right? A squared plus B squared minus 2AB, the angle between them, cos of the angle between them gives C squared. So the same way, in triangle ABC, E square can be written as a square plus b square minus 2ab cos 60, right? Now we know that a square plus b squared is 2 square plus 5 square minus 2 into 5 cos 60 is 1 by 2. Now this would give me e squared is 2 square 4, 25 minus 10, 19. In triangle ADC, e squared would be equal to c squared plus d squared minus 2cd cos of 120. Since we know e squared is 19, 19 is going to be c squared plus d squared minus 2cd cos of 120 is minus 1 by 2. Therefore, I get c squared plus d squared minus plus cd, is 19. So this is another equation. Now if you substitute this equation 1 and 2, you would get c squared plus d squared is nothing but 13, right? So now it's up to us to solve this equation and the other one and obtain the value of c and d. Alright, so the easiest way would be to take c is equal to d by 6 by d. So 6 upon d squared plus d squared is 13. Therefore, d power 4 minus 13d squared plus 36. So plus 36 would be 0. Therefore, d squared minus 4 into d squared minus 9 is 0. D can be square root of 4, which is 2, or d can be 3. If d is 2, c is 3. If d is 3, c is 2. From this equation, c into d should be 6. So if d is 2, c is 3. So the two other sides are 2, 3. Right? So these two sides were given 2, this was 5. And now we have computed that the other two sides must be 2 and 3. So the perimeter P can be 2 plus 5 plus 2 plus 3, which is 12 units, right? So the answer is 12 units, option D. Very simple. We form two equations with C and D. One is the total area and the other is the triangle equation, the cosine rule basically. You find E squared in both the triangles and equate it. Third problem. If f of x is cos of ln x, then f of x into f of y minus half f of x by y plus f of xy is equal to. Now this is a very straight problem. Just substitute f of x and f of y using this function, okay? So f of x is just cos ln x into cos ln y minus half f of x by y would be cos ln x by y plus f of xy would be cos ln xy, right? Okay. Now let us focus only on this term in the bracket. Okay, that term cos ln x by y can be written as cos ln x minus ln y, and this term can be written as cos of ln x plus ln y. Now this is the form cos a minus b plus cos a plus b, and we know this is nothing but 2 times cos of a cos of b. So this whole bracket is 2 times cos of ln x cos of ln y. So the final answer would be cos of ln x into cos of ln y minus half into 2 cos ln x cos ln y. So 2 and 2 are gone. So cos ln x cos ln y minus cos ln x cos ln y is 0. So very simple, based on a very simple trigonometric identity and a simple application of the properties of logarithms. Question number 4, a binomial theorem based question. The coefficient of the term independent of x, the constant term, in square root of x by 3 plus square root of 3 by x squared, the whole raised to 10. Now let us write the general term. Tr plus 1 is given as 10n, this is NCR x raised to n minus r a raised to r in the expansion of x plus a the whole raised to n. N is the power, x is the first term, a is the second term. So using this, for the given equation, this is x, this is a, and this is n. So my general term is going to be 10CR x raised to square root of x by 3 raised to 10 minus r, and a, which is square root of 3 by x squared raised to r. Now this can be simplified. This becomes square root of x to the power 10 minus r by square root of 3 to the power 10 minus r, and here square root of 3 power r upon x to the power 2r. Now we know square root of x to the power 10 minus r is nothing but square root of x to the power 10 minus r by 2. And then let's write the x to the power 2r here, and let these two terms be together. Okay, so what does this term become? 10 minus r by 2 minus 2r, right? So tr plus 1 is 10CR x raised to 10 minus r by 2 minus 2r, and then root 3 power 10 root 3 power r minus 10 minus r. Okay, so this is 10CR x raised to 10 minus 5r upon 2, yeah, and root 3 raised to 2r minus 10. This is the nth term. Now to find term independent of x, that is a constant term, equate the power of x to 0, right? So 10 minus 5r by 2 equals 0 would imply r is equal to 2. To get that term, substitute this back there. So what I get is T3, that is the third term of this expansion, would be 10C2 x raised to 0, right? And then root 3 raised to 4 minus 10, which is minus 6. 10C2 is nothing but 10 into 9 by 2 into 1. X raised to 0 is 1. And this is root 3 raised to minus 6, which is 1 by root 3 raised to 6. And root 3 raised to 6 is 3 raised to 3, which is 27. So I can get 5 upon 3. So the option is 5 upon 3a, right? Very simple. Simplify the term properly and then take the power of x to be equal to 0. Question number 5. The area bounded by y is equal to x e to the power mod x and the lines mod x is equal to 1, y is equal to 0 is. How is this curve going to look like? X into e raised to mod x, okay? Now x into e raised to mod x is going to be like this. E raised to mod x is going to be a positive function, and e raised to mod x is going to be an even function, but x into e raised to mod x is going to make it an odd function. So it starts with 0 and then would go to infinity somehow like this, and then the second on the other side it would take the other way, right? It will go to minus infinity somehow like that. Now they say find the area bounded by this curve. The line mod x is equal to 1. Mod x is equal to 1 means x can be minus 1 or 1. So you have x is minus 1 and x is 1, and y is equal to 0 is the x axis. So the area required is this much. Alright. Now you see, there is the area that is asked. If they just ask you in this problem, if the question is about finding the integral minus 1 to 1 x e power mod x dx, you know this is 0 because this is an odd function. But when they say area, you have to find this area separately and this area separately and add them. And if you know that this area is going to be negative, you make a modulus of the integral in this region. Or you can say that you find this particular area here of x e power mod x and multiply that by 2 to get this area also. I prefer the second technique. So the area would actually involve integrating the whole thing, but from minus 1 to 0 I integrate, and since I would get a negative area because it lies below the x-axis, I take a modulus for this, and from 0 to 1, since it lies above the x-axis, I take the normal integral. And I promise you both are going to be the same. So therefore it is sufficient to evaluate x e power mod x from 0 to 1 and multiply it by 2. Now in the positive region, we know mod x is equal to x. Therefore this is integral 0 to 1 x e to the power x dx. Okay. Let us evaluate this integral. So the area required is 2 times integral 0 to 1 x e raised to x dx. Take this as u, take this as dv. So du will be dx and v will be e raised to x. Therefore, we know integral u dv is nothing but uv minus integral v du. Therefore, the area becomes 2 times uv is x into e raised to x. U is x, v is e raised to x. And to this you can already apply the limit 0 to 1. And then we still have the integral 0 to 1 v du. V is e raised to x and du is dx. So this becomes, when you substitute the limits here, or let us complete the integral and substitute the limits together. This is x into e raised to x from 0 to 1, and e raised to x dx is e raised to x from 0 to 1. Now if I substitute the limits, 2 into, when I substitute 1, this term becomes 1 into e raised to 1. When I substitute 0, it becomes minus 0 into e raised to 0 minus e raised to x is e raised to 1 is 1, and minus e raised to 1 is e, and then e raised to 0 is minus 1. So this on simplification is 2 into e minus e plus 1, or 2 square units. So the area in this region is 1 and the area in this region is 1, and therefore the total area is 2 square units. A very simple problem. Identify that these are just odd functions. So one is going to be the negative of the other. So this part you have to take a modulus. So evaluate this. You can evaluate this considering this as minus x, and you will get the same answer in the end. Moving on to question number 6. Now this is an interesting question. The minimum distance between the curves y squared is x minus 1 and x squared is y minus 1 is equal to. Okay, so how are these curves going to look like? Now, we know y squared is x minus 1 is a parabola open to the right and vertex is 1, 0. That is, it opens to the right. Let us call this 1, 0, and it opens to the right. Okay, and this parabola opens up and vertex is 0, 1. So this is going to be from 0, 1 and it opens up. And both these parabolas are symmetric. If you rotate this parabola by 90 degrees, you get this, right? Okay, now the question is, what is the minimum distance between these two curves? Now how to calculate? Remember, this parabola is x squared is y minus 1. This parabola is y squared is x minus 1. Let us call this the parabola 1 and let us call this the parabola 2. Now the minimum distance, remember, is going to be along the line which is the common normal to both these curves, right? That is, you should find which line would be the common normal to both. Common normal means same line as a normal to this curve and to this curve, which means the tangent here and the tangent here to this curve should be parallel to each other. Let us call this as point x1, y1, which lies on y squared is equal to x minus 1, and let us call this point x2, y2, which lies on the curve x squared is equal to y minus 1. What we can say is that the slope at this point to this curve and slope at this point to this curve should be the same, right? So let us find that and see if we can get any useful results for x and y from that. So first curve, y squared is x minus 1. So differentiate this, you get 2y dy upon dx is 1, or dy upon dx is 1 by 2y, which at this point x1, y1 is 1 by 2y1. Please notice we write y1 to denote that this is for this curve. Let us go to the other curve. X squared is y minus 1. Differentiate this, you get 2x is dy by dx. And the slope of the point x2, y2, which is on this curve, would be therefore dy by dx of this is curve 1, this curve 2 is 2x2. Now these two slopes should be equal, is what we have said so far, right? Therefore, if these two slopes should be equal, 1 by 2y1 should be equal to 2x1, or 2x2, or x2 into y1 should be 1 by 4. Now how to solve for both x2 and y1 from this? We use the argument from symmetry, that these two curves are symmetric. Rotate this by 90, you get this. Okay, so we use one more assumption, that x2 in this curve should be the same as y1 in this curve. Same way, y2 in this curve should be the same as x1 in this curve. So using that, if you say x2 should be equal to y1, you get x2 is 1 by 2 and y1 is also 1 by 2. Now of course the other answer would be x2 and y1 are minus 1 by 2 minus 1 by 2, but that would be somewhere here, and though the slopes are equal on that side also, we will not get a common normal there. Okay, so the common normal is here somewhere in the first quadrant, and the points through which that common normal passes are also in the first quadrant. So we choose x2 is 1 by 2 and y1 is 1 by 2. Now if y1 is 1 by 2, from the first curve remember is y squared is x minus 1. So from this I get 1 by 4 is x1 minus 1, or x1 is 5 by 4. And then the same way, if x2 is 1 by 2, from the second curve x squared is equal to y minus 1, we get 1 by 4 is y2 minus 1, or y2 is 5 upon 4. So you see the 2 points are, the first point x1 y1 is 5 by 2 1 by 2, 5 by 4 1 by 2, and the second point is 1 by 2 5 by 4. As I told you, these points are symmetric to each other, right? And what will be the distance between these 2 points? Distance formula. 5 by 4 minus 1 by 2 the whole square plus 1 by 2 minus 5 by 4 the whole square. And this would be 2 by 4, so 3 by 4 the whole square plus 3 by 4 the whole square. 9 by 16 plus 9 by 16 under root. Or this becomes 3 by 4 into root 2. So the answer to the problem is 3 by 4 into root 2 units is the minimum distance, which is option A. 3 by 4 into root 2 units. The ideas that we have used are the shortest distance is along the common normal. So if there is a common normal, then the tangents at the ends of the common normal should be parallel. Their slope should be the same. So slope of the tangent to this curve at x1, y1 should be the same as the slope of this tangent at x2, y2. We got that, and using the argument of symmetry, we took x2 is equal to y1 in order to solve and obtain x1, y1, x2, y2. And then distance is simple. This is distance formula. Question number 7. Integral of minus 1 by 2, the greatest integer function and a log function is. Now always the first thing to do when you have limits like this, minus a to plus a, is to see if there are any odd or even functions. Now this function is neither odd nor even, has to be evaluated. But what about this? Take f of x is equal to ln of 1 plus x by 1 minus x. What would be f of minus x? This would become ln of 1 minus x by 1 plus x, right? Minus x and minus of minus x is plus x. Now f of minus x, if I continue to simplify this, I can write this as 1 plus x by 1 minus x to the power minus 1, the reciprocal of this. And because of logarithm, that can be brought forward. And if you see, this is nothing but f of x. So you have f of minus x is equal to minus of f of x. So odd function. Therefore this term, the integral is going to be 0. Integral minus 1 by 2 to 1 by 2 ln of 1 plus x by 1 minus x dx is 0. Very simple. Let us evaluate the first integral. Integral minus 1 by 2 to 1 by 2 box x dx. Split this into two integrals because box x is discontinuous. 0 minus 1 by 2 to 0 and 0 to 1 by 2. Now for every number between minus 1 by 2 to 0, box x will have value minus 1, right? The integer that is just less than any number here is minus 1. And then for any integer here, this area should be equal to 0. The value of box x in this region is 0. Remember, box x goes like this. Here it is 0. Between minus 1 and 0, say 1, 2, etc. Minus 2. Here in this region it is minus 2. In this region it is 1, and so on. So we are concerned about this region. There it is minus 1, and in this region it is 0. So this integral is 0, and here I get minus x from minus 1 by 2 to 0. So the upper limit minus 0 minus of lower limit minus of minus 1 by 2. Be very careful. You get as minus 1 by 2 in the end. So the answer is minus 1 by 2. Also, if you remember this graph properly, as I told you, in this area from minus 1 by 2 to 0, it is going to have value minus 1. So this area is 1 into 1 by 2, half, but since it is below the x-axis, its value is minus 1. In this region, the area is going to be 0. So the answer is minus 1 by 2, option A. Remember, we made this 0 because it is an odd function. Check f of minus x basically. Question number 8, permutations and combinations. How many words with or without meaning can be made from letters of the word Monday. So there are 6 letters. Assuming that no letter is repeated, if 4 letters are used at a time. So you're making 4 letter words and you're not repeating any letter. So the first place can have any of the 6, second place can have any of the 5 remaining, then 4 and 3, right? So the answer is 6 into 5 into 4 into 3 base, which is 30 into 12, 360 ways. Very simple problem. You can also take 6p4 and you will get the same answer. 6 objects to be arranged in 4 places. Question number 9. If f of x plus y, x minus y is x, xy, then the arithmetic mean of f of x, y and f of y, x is what? So first of all, let us try to find what is f of x, y, right? So if you take x plus y as a and x minus y as b, then a plus b would be 2x, right? A plus b is 2x, or x can be a plus b. Okay, let us say a plus b by 2. The same way y would be a minus b by 2. Okay, so let us substitute x plus y is a, x minus y is b, x is a plus b by 2 and y is a minus b by 2 in this equation. So I would get f of a comma b is equal to a plus b by 2 into a minus b by 2. This is a squared minus b squared by 4. So you can say f of x comma y is, replace a and b by x and y normally, is x squared minus y squared upon 4. Okay. So they have asked us to find the arithmetic mean of f of x comma y and f of y comma x. The arithmetic mean therefore is f of x comma y plus f of y comma x upon 2. We already have f of x comma y. What will be f of y comma x? Now the arithmetic mean f of x comma y plus f of y comma x upon 2 is f. Now we know f of x comma y is x squared minus y squared upon 4. So using this, f of x comma y would be x squared minus y squared upon 4 plus f of y comma x would be y squared minus x squared upon 4. The whole thing by 2. Okay. So this becomes x squared minus y squared plus y squared minus x squared by 8, which is 0. So the arithmetic mean of f of x comma y and f of y comma x is 0. Okay, moving on to question number 10. The real values of x and y satisfying the equation 1 plus I into x minus 2i by 3 plus I plus 2 minus 3i into y plus I by 3 minus I is equal to 1 are. Now these are very simple problems. The idea is equate the real and imaginary parts on both sides. But to do that, first of all you have to rationalize each term and then you try equating the real and imaginary parts. Okay. So if you see that these two are conjugates themselves, take the LCM and that would itself rationalize the denominator. Correct? Okay. So what I mean is 1 plus I, let us expand the whole terms and write, that is x plus xi minus 2i upon 3 plus I plus 2y minus 3yi plus I upon 3 minus I are equal to I. Now this is nothing but x plus x minus 2 times I by 3 plus I. Of course the LCM is 3 plus I into 3 minus I. So you multiply these two here, cross multiply these two terms. So this times 3 minus I, and then you have 2y plus I into minus 3y plus 1, right? I into minus 3y plus 1, the whole thing multiplied by 3 plus I. Okay, so here the denominator becomes 10. 9 square plus 1 square is 10. What about the numerator? X into 3, the real part would be 3x, and then these two terms, that is minus BD, so minus of minus 1 into x minus 2, and then the real part from here would be 2y into 3, 6y, and then minus of BD, so minus 3y plus 1 into 1, and the imaginary part would be AD plus BC, that is x into minus 1 is minus x plus 3x minus 6, and then here the imaginary part would be 2y into I is 2y, and minus 3y plus 1 into 3 is minus 9y plus 3. Do the algebra carefully. So here I have 3x plus 1, so plus x, 4x minus 2. Okay, let me write the x term, 4x. And then here I have 6y plus 3y, which is 9y. And then let's look at the constant. Here I have minus 2 and here I have minus 1, so minus 3. Plus I times, here I have 2x minus 6, 2x, so the real part is 2x. This becomes minus 7y. Then minus 6 plus 3 is minus 3. And this 9 plus 1, 10 can be taken here, 10i. Therefore, the real part equate to the real part here, the imaginary part to the imaginary part. Since there is no real part, this should be 0. So 4x plus 9y minus 3 is 0. 4x plus 9y minus 3 is 0, which gives one equation, 4x plus 9y is equal to 3. And the second equation is 2x minus 7y minus 3 is 10. So 2x minus 7y minus 3 is 10, or 2x minus 7y is 13. Now solve these two equations and obtain x and y, right? So multiply 2 by 2 and subtract from 1. So 1 is 4x plus 9y is 3. This will become 4x minus 14y is 26, and when I subtract both, this term is gone. This becomes 23y, and I subtract this is minus 23, or y is minus 1. Back substituting an equation 1 or 2, let us do in 1. So 4x plus 9 into minus 1 is 3. Put y is minus 1 in 1 is what we are doing. So this gives us 4x is equal to 12 and x is equal to 3. So x comma y would be 3 comma minus 1. Very simple, keep track of the algebra, and the answer is 3 comma minus 1, option B. Very direct problem, do carefully. Question number 11. A tangent to a curve intersects the y-axis at a point P. The line perpendicular to this tangent through P passes through the point 1, 0. The differential equation of the curve is, so we have a curve, okay, and this curve has a tangent. Let us say at this point it has a tangent. At point P they say, so let us call this point as x1 comma y1. So the tangent at x1 comma y1 passes through the y-axis at a point P. Right? Cuts the y-axis at a point P. A line perpendicular to this tangent, so this tangent, a line perpendicular to this, drawn through P. So we have a line from here perpendicular to this tangent. Okay. So this is the tangent and this is the line we are talking about. This line passes through 1, 0. Then the differential equation is what? So our approach to this problem will be find the equation of the tangent, find where it intersects the point, intersects the y-axis, and at that point find the equation of a line whose slope would be perpendicular to the tangent and passing through this point. Very simple. Okay. So the first thing is, let us say the slope of the tangent is going to be dy by dx. So if this is point Q and this is point R, what we are writing is slope of PQ is dy by dx and slope of PR, since it is perpendicular, is minus 1 upon dy by dx. Now the equation of this tangent here is going to be y minus y1 is equal to the slope, which is dy by dx, into x minus x1. Now P is where this line intersects the y-axis, right? So P, to find P, you put x is equal to 0 here, okay, and you will get y. So if x is 0 here, y will be y1 minus x1 into dy by dx, right? Put x is equal to 0, so it is minus x1 into dy by dx plus y, plus y1. So you found this point, so that P is nothing but 0, y1 minus x1 dy by dx. Now I have another line, that is the line PR. Now PR has slope minus 1 by dy by dx and its y-intercept is y1 minus x1 dy by dx. So we know the equation of a line with slope intercept form is y is mx plus c. So in this case it should be minus 1 by dy by dx into x plus c is the y-intercept. The y-intercept is this value here, y1 minus x1 into dy by dx. So plus y1 minus x1 into dy by dx. Alright. Now they have said that this equation, this is the line PR. PR passes through 1, 0. Okay. So substitute 1, 0 here. I get 0 is equal to minus 1 by dy by dx into 1 plus y1 minus x1 dy by dx. Multiply both sides by dy by dx and you get 0 is minus 1 plus y1 into dy by dx minus x1 into dy by dx the whole square. Or you rearrange this and substitute, and since y1 x1, I mean x1 y1 can be any arbitrary point, replace them by xy to get the differential equation. X dy by dx the whole square minus y dy by dx plus 1 is 0. Okay. So that is x dy by dx the whole square, x dy by dx the whole square minus y dy by dx. Okay, this is the equation. That is, it is in this form with this 1 on the other side. Okay, so let's rewrite it anyway in that form. Y dy by dx minus x dy by dx the whole square is equal to 1. So this is option A. Okay, very simple. Remember, there is a point x1 y1, tangent is dy by dx, and there is another line whose slope is going to be minus 1 by dy by dx. Now the tangent's equation is this, and you find the y-intercept from there, and using that y-intercept and this slope, find the equation of PR. This is the equation of PR, and since PR passes through 1, 0, eliminate x and y, you get an equation in x1 y1, and since x1 y1 can be arbitrary, you substitute x and y in the place of x and y, x1 and y1, and you get the differential equation. Question number 12. If delta r is the determinant 2r minus 1 mcr1 and some functions of m, then the value of summation r is equal to 0 to m delta is. Basically, what are they asking us? They're asking us the first determinant is going to be -1 and MC0, which is 1 and 1. Second determinant is going to be 1 and MC1M and 1. Third determinant, and so many determinants. Find the summation of the values of all these determinants. How to do this problem? It seems very frightening in the beginning, and even to expand this determinant is going to be a big difficulty. It is not going to be a very simple term. But remember that in this determinant, the series of determinants for r is equal to 0, r is equal to 1, r is equal to 2, the second and the third rows are going to remain the same, right? These are not functions of r. So we have determinants in which only the first row keeps changing. Okay, what do I mean, and how can we use this property? We know this, right? That is, if there is a determinant a1, a2, a3, and then here there are some elements, okay, and if you add it to another determinant b1, b2, b3, and if you have the same rows here, same elements here also, this can be written as a1 plus a2, b1 plus b2, c1 plus c2, and keep the same elements here, right? One of the properties of the determinants. If these two rows are the same, you can add the other two rows, add the first rows in these two determinants. Therefore, here also, since these two rows are the same, the summation is only going to be for the elements in the first row. What does that mean? This summation can be taken inside the determinant basically. Therefore, that summation of delta will become equal to summation of 2r minus 1 from 0 to n, summation of 0 to m mcr, summation of 0 to m 1, and you have the same elements here, all these elements. Now let us evaluate these summations and see if anything useful happens. The first summation of 2r minus 1, m is equal to 0 to, r is equal to 0 to m. So this is basically going to be minus 1 plus 1 plus 3 plus 5 up to 2m minus 1. Now we know this is a series summation of the odd numbers, right? So summation of odd numbers, the first m odd numbers is m squared. Remember, summation of 2m to, let us say, 2n minus 1 from n is equal to 1 to k is k squared. The first k odd numbers added together is k squared. So this part here is nothing but m squared. Therefore this can be written as minus 1 plus m squared, or m squared minus 1. So this is the first summation. Now the second summation is summation of mcr from 0 to m. That is mc1, mc0 plus mc1 plus mc2 up to mcn. Now we know this is nothing but 2 raised to n, right? One property from binomial theorem. And the third is summation of 1 from 0 to m. That is, it is just 1 plus 1 plus 1, but from 0, 1, 2, 3 up to m. So totally have m plus 1 times 1. So there are m plus 1 ones here. Be careful, it is not m but m plus 1. So the first row is now obtained, m squared minus 1, 2 power m and m plus 1. Now let us write the other rows of the determinant here. What is the second row? M squared minus 1, 2m and m plus 1. 2 raised to m and m plus 1. And third row is something else. But already we see that the first and the second row are identical. When two rows or two columns are identical in a determinant, the value of the determinant is 0. So there is no evaluating the determinant, only evaluating the summations here. And this has been possible because only the first row is varying, the other two rows are constant. Alright. Question 13. If alpha is equal to sine inverse of root 3 by 2 plus sine inverse of 1 by 3 and beta is cos inverse of root 3 by 2 plus cos inverse of 1 by 3, then What can we say about these terms? Alright, so there are two different ways to do this. One thing is to think about instead of adding them, finding the resultant sine inverse of x plus sine inverse of y using that identity and all. Just think about this problem. How is this going to be? For example, alpha we know is sine inverse of root 3 by 2 plus sine inverse of 1 by 3, right? Now sine inverse of root 3 by 2 is pi by 3. Sine 60 is root 3 by 2 plus sine inverse of 1 by 3. Now sine theta in 0 to 90 is an increasing function, right? It increases from 0 to pi by 2. Sine x increases. This is sine x. Therefore, the value of sine x where it is, this value is 1. Okay. So imagine it is 1 by 2 at pi by 6. Sine 30 is 1 by 2. Therefore, 1 by 3, which is somewhere here, would belong to a smaller angle. So what I am trying to say is that this angle is going to be less than pi by 6. Okay? You understand this? Because sine x is an increasing function. So 1 by 2, if it is cos sine 60, sine 30 is 1 by 2, sine 30 is 1 by 2, then 1 by 3 would belong to a much smaller angle because 1 by 2 is less than 1 by 3. Therefore, this angle is less than 30 degrees. So alpha is pi by 3 plus an angle less than 30 degrees. If it is 60 plus 30, it would be 90, but it is less than 30, so alpha should be less than pi by 2. Did you get this idea? Because this is going to be less than pi by 6. Okay, so we know alpha is less than pi by 2. What about beta? Now beta is cos inverse of square root of 3 by 2 plus cos inverse of 1 by 3. Now what do we know about this? Cos inverse of root 3 by 2 is going to be pi by 6 plus cos inverse of 1 by 3. Now using the same argument, let us say cos, if I draw cos, it is going to be from 1 and it is a decreasing function, it will go to 0. Okay, sorry, it won't intersect here, but nonetheless, let me redraw this cos properly. Sin x and cos x, they intersect at 45. Alright, so let us say this is cos x. Now if I argue the same way with cos x, now here I have cos inverse of 1 by 3. Now see, cos inverse of 1 by 2 is pi by 3, right? So cos inverse of 1 by 3 will be greater than pi by 3 because cos is a decreasing function. Okay, since cos is a decreasing function in the domain 0 to pi by 2, as the angle decreases, the cos inverse as the value of the function decreases, the cos inverse increases. That is, this angle is some angle that is greater than pi by 3. So it's greater than 60 degrees. So this is 30 degrees and 60 degrees. So beta is going to be greater than 90 degrees. So you see, alpha is less than 90 degrees and beta is greater than 90 degrees. So alpha is less than beta, which is option C. So here we have just used the idea of increasing and decreasing functions. Sin x is increasing, therefore sin 1 by 3 should be less than sin inverse of 1 by 2. Okay, 1 by 2 is 30 degrees, so 1 by 3 should be less than 30 degrees. So this total angle is less than 90. But for cos inverse of 1 by 2 is pi by 3, 60 degrees. And this pi by 3, if it occurs at 1 by 2, and then at 1 by 3 that would be greater than pi by 3. So this angle is greater than pi by 3, and so the summation is going to be greater than pi by 2. Okay, so that way alpha is less than beta. Question number 14. The logically equivalent proposition of P if and only if Q right? P implies Q and Q implies P. Basically that is this option straight away. This means P implies Q and Q should imply P. No working anything, just choose the correct answer. Let us go to question number 15. Log of x cube minus y cube by x cube plus y cube base 10 is equal to 2, then dy by dx is how much? Don't directly try to differentiate this, let us try to simplify this. Raise both sides to the power of 10, that is 10 raised to log 10 x cube minus y cube upon x cube plus y cube is 10 the whole square. So this becomes x cube minus y cube by x cube plus y cube is 100. Alright, and then rearrange this and get a relationship between x cube and y cube is 100 x cube plus 100 y cube, or minus 101 y cube is 99 x cube, or y cube is minus 99 by 100 x cube, which can be written as y is equal to minus 99 by 101 the whole power 1 by 3 into x. We have just taken a cube root on both sides. So y cube root of this into x. This is a straight line. Now try to find dy by dx. Dy by dx you get is just this constant minus 99 by 101 power 1 by 3 into 1. And if you see, this constant is nothing but y by x, right? That is, from this equation 1 you can write minus 99 by 101 the whole power 1 by 3 is nothing but y by x. So this is equal to y by x. Therefore this is a case of dy by dx is equal to y by x. So it is option D, y by x. Moving on to question number 16. If A is a set of even natural numbers less than 8, even natural numbers, okay, even numbers less than 8, so 2, 4, 6. B is a set of prime numbers less than 7, so B is 2, 3, 5. Remember, 1 is not a prime, not a composite number. Then the number of relations from A to B are. Now we know number of relations is equal to number of subsets of A cross B, right? So A cross B would have, the number of elements will be 9. Therefore the number of subsets, that is the power set, is 2 raised to 9. Therefore the number of relations between relations defined on A and B is 2 raised to 9, 512. So 2 raised to 9, option A. Let us move to question number 17. For real x, the function x minus a into x minus b by x minus c will assume all real values provided. This is a bit tricky. Let us take y to denote this function, x minus a times x minus b upon x minus c. Rewrite this as a quadratic. Xy minus cy is equal to x squared minus ax minus bx plus ab. Now this would give us x squared minus x into a plus b plus y. Take this term to that side, minus xy, and combine it here, and then ab plus cy. For real x, b squared minus 4ac, the discriminant of this should be greater than or equal to 0. So a plus b plus y the whole square minus 4 into ab plus cy should be greater than or equal to 0. Expand this quickly. A squared plus b squared plus y squared plus 2ab plus 2ay plus 2by minus 4ab minus 4yc is greater than or equal to 0. Rewrite this as a quadratic in y, so y squared, and then combine these y terms. If I take 2 common, I get a plus b minus 2c times y, and then the rest is a squared plus b squared plus 2ab minus 4ab, which is a squared plus b squared minus 2ab, or y squared plus 2 into a plus b minus 2c into y plus a minus b the whole square is greater than or equal to 0. So this is the condition for y. Y is the value of the function itself, right? But you'll see that this is a quadratic inequality and it's a greater than inequality. So if this equation here on the left has real roots, you mark those real roots here and here, and since it is greater than, the solution will be y should be in the region outside these real roots, right? So this will say that y cannot have any value here. Y can have any values here or here. Therefore, if this function y should have all real values, that is including this also, then it should not have any real roots. Okay? If there are any real roots, then the region between that roots will be excluded because of this inequality. So this equation should not have any real roots. What is that condition? B squared minus 4ac of this equation should be less than or equal to 0. So the b square would be 2 into a plus b minus 2c the whole square minus 4ac would be 4 into a minus b the whole square. This should be less than or equal to 0. So this gives 4 into a plus b minus 2c the whole square minus a minus b the whole square less than 0. So this can be factorized easily. A plus b minus 2c minus of a, plus of a minus b, and a plus b minus 2c minus of a plus b, right? This is a squared minus b squared, so I have written a plus b and a minus b. So this becomes 2a minus 2c, and this becomes 2b minus 2c. So again, take 2 from here, cancel them all, and I have a minus c into b minus c is less than or equal to 0. Now if I change the sign here and write c minus a and change the sign here also c minus b, the sign of the inequality won't change because it becomes positive again. Now this is a quadratic equation in C, and what we can say is C has roots a and b, and since the quadratic inequality is less than 0, C has to be between a and b. That is, if a is less than b, it is like this, or C should be like this. It has to be between the region of a and b, right? This is the quadratic inequality in C. So the conditions are C should lie between a and b, which among these four is satisfied only here. C lies between a and b, including, right? Because this also includes C between a and b, but still the equal to sign is not there. The inclusive sign is necessary. Okay? Let us move on to question number 18. OPQR is a square. Okay? M and N are the midpoints of the sides P, Q and QR respectively. So the midpoint here is M, QR here is N. Then the ratio of the areas of the square and the triangle OMN. So there is a triangle here, OMN, and there is a square. Now the easiest way would be to go with analytical geometry. So this point, let us say, is the origin 0, 0, and if the side length is a, this is going to be a, 0, this is going to be a, a, and this is going to be 0, a. Now the midpoint here is going to be a by 2, a, and the midpoint here is going to be a, a by 2. So the area of the square OPQR is a squared. Now let us find the area of the triangle OMN. That is 0, 0, a by 2 and a by 2, a. So we know the area of a triangle is that nice expression, half x1 y2 minus y3, x2 y3 minus y1, x1 y3 minus y2, and you take the positive value of this. So let us take the 3 points The 3 points are 0, 0, a by 2 and a by 2, a. So half of 0 into a by 2 minus a plus a into a minus 0 plus, and I get a by 2 into 0 minus a by 2, right? So this gives me 1 by 2, first term is 0, the second term is a squared, plus here I get minus a squared by 4. So this is half of 3a squared by 4, which is 3a squared by 8. So triangle OMN has area 3a squared by 8. Now the question is the ratio of the areas of square to the triangle, that is OPQR by OMN. This is a squared upon 3a squared by 8, which is 8 by 3. So the answer is 8:3, option C. Question number 19. Integral of sine power 4x cos power 8x dx is equal to. Very simple question. Split the cos power 8x as cos power 4x into cos power 4x dx. Now this is tan to the power 4x, and 1 by cos raised to 4x is secant power 4x. Now we know tan when differentiated becomes secant squared, right? So we'll try to keep a secant squared and then change this again to tan. So this would mean tan power 4x 1 plus tan squared x secant squared x dx. This becomes tan power 4x plus tan power 6x times secant square x dx. So take t is equal to tan x, dt is secant squared x dx. So see, the integral is just t power 4 plus t power 6 dt. So integral t power 4 plus t power 6 dt is t power 5 by 5 plus t power 6 by 6 plus c, and t is nothing but tan x. So tan x power 5 by 5 plus tan, this is power 7 by 7. So the answer is tan power 5x by 5 plus tan power 7x by 7. Okay. Right, moving on to question number 20. If x is equal to 3 is the chord of contact of the circle x squared plus y squared is 81, then the equation of the corresponding pair of tangents is. So we have a circle and this is x squared plus y squared is 81, so this radius is 9 units, 9, 0, etc. Center is the origin. Now x is equal to 3 is the chord of contact. So imagine I have x is equal to 3 somewhere here. This would intersect the circle at 2 points, and this would give me possibility to get 2 tangents. Now the question is the equation of the corresponding pair of the tangents. So find the equation of this tangent, find the equation of this tangent, and multiply them, you get the equation of the pair of straight lines that represent the tangents. So this is x is 3. What will be the value of y here? Substitute it in the equation of the circle. X squared plus y squared is 81. When x is 3, y squared is 81 minus 9, 72. So y should be root of 72, which is 6 root 2 plus or minus. So the point here is 3 comma 6 root 2, and the point here is 3 comma minus 6 root 2. Alright? Okay. Now what is the tangent to the circle x squared plus y squared is equal to a squared at x1 comma y1, where x1 comma y1 lies on the circle? It is xx1 plus yy1 is equal to a squared. So using this, we can find the tangent at this point and tangent at this point. So first, tangent at 3, 6 root 2. Remember, tangent's equation is x1 plus y1 is equal to 81. Therefore, it will be 3x plus 6 root 2 y minus 81 is 0, or x plus 2 root 2 y minus 27 is 0. Okay, this is nothing but I'm just dividing it by 3. So the tangent at 3 minus 6 root 2 will be 3x minus 6 root 2 y minus 81 is 0, or x minus 2 root 2 y minus 27 is 0. So the pair of straight lines formed would be the product of these two, x plus 2 root 2 y minus 27 and x minus 2 root 2 y minus 27. The product of these two, right? Which will be, if you observe that there is x minus 27 plus 2 root 2 y and minus 2 root 2 y here. So this can be written as x minus 27 the whole square minus 2 root 2 y the whole square, a squared minus b squared. So this is x squared minus 54x plus 729 minus 8y squared is 0, or x squared minus 8y squared minus 54x plus 729 is equal to 0. Okay, so that is x squared minus 8y squared minus 54x plus 729. So option B. Proceeding to question number 21, we start the subjective numericals. The number of solutions that the equation sin power 4x plus cos power 4x is equal to sin x cos x has in the region pi to 5 pi is. Let us try to break this down a little bit. A power 4 plus b power 4 is a squared plus b squared minus, the whole square minus 2a squared b squared, right? So therefore sin power 4x can be written as sin squared plus cos squared of x the whole squared minus 2 sin squared x cos squared x is equal to sin x cos x. Now this would become 1, and take both these terms, this 1 and this term, to the other side. I have 2 sin squared x cos squared x plus sin x cos x minus 1 will be 0. So this you can see, if you take sin x cos x as your t, this is nothing but 2t square plus t minus 1 is 0, or factorizing it becomes 2t minus 1 into t plus 1 is 0. Okay, so this would give us 2t minus 1 is 0 or t plus 1 is 0. If 2t minus 1 is 0, first let us consider t plus 1 is 0. This means sin x cos x plus 1 is 0, or sin x cos x is equal to minus 1, or sin 2x by 2 is minus 1, or sin 2x is minus 2, which is not possible. So there are no solutions for this equation. This cannot be 0. Okay, what happens to the next one? 2t minus 1 is 0, means 2 sin x cos x minus 1 is 0, or sin x cos x, this 2 sin x cos x can easily be written as sin 2x, right? So I can write this as sin 2x minus 1 is 0. Remember that the range of the solution should be pi to 5 pi, okay? So I have sin 2x is equal to 1. Now they say x should belong to pi to 5 pi. So 2x can belong to 2 pi to 10 pi. So we are looking at solutions for this in this region. Okay. So if sin 2x is 1, Now 2x has to be, we know, pi by 2, 3 pi by, not 3 pi by 2, 5 pi by 2, plus 2 pi, 9 pi by 2, plus 2 pi, we are adding 2 pi and 2 pi, plus 2 pi, 13 pi by 2, plus 2 pi, 17 pi by 2, another 2 pi, 21 pi by 2, and so on. Now you see 21 pi by 2 is like 10.5 pi, which is greater than 10 pi, and pi by 2 is less than 2 pi. So only these 4 solutions for 2x lie in this domain. So the values of x that are admissible would be this 5 pi by 4, 9 pi by 4, 13 pi by 4, and 17 pi by 4. So there are 4 solutions possible. So the answer to this first question is number 4. Let's move on to question number 22. A tower subtends angles alpha, 2 alpha, 3 alpha at points A, B and C. So there is a tower here, and this subtends angle alpha at point A, 2 alpha, so this is alpha, this is 2 alpha at point B, and 3 alpha at point C, all lying on a horizontal line through the foot of the tower. If AB by BC, AB by BC is 1 plus P cos P alpha, then the value of P is. Now this is a very simple problem. If you notice that if this angle is 2 alpha, this has to be alpha, right? Because sum of interior opposite angles should be equal to the exterior angle. The same way, since this is 2 alpha and this is 3 alpha, this angle here should also be alpha. So now this means that this angle here, let us say this I say is 2 alpha. So this angle will be alpha plus 2 alpha is 3 alpha, or 180 minus 3 alpha, this angle here. Okay. Now in this triangle, that is, let us name this O, AOB. AOB is an isosceles triangle because 2 angles are equal. So AB should be equal to OB, right? So AB and OB are equal. Remember this. Let us see in triangle OBC. Okay, OBC. Now this angle is 2 alpha, this angle is alpha, this angle is 180 minus 3 alpha. This is BC, this is okay. Now we know the law of sines, right? We can write OB divided by sine of 180 minus 3 alpha is equal to BC divided by sine of alpha, and then of course you can write OC is by sine of 2 alpha. All three should be equal. Now we know, we have said that OB is equal to AB because it is an isosceles triangle. Therefore AB by sine 180 minus 3 alpha is sine 3 alpha. This should be equal to BC by sine alpha, right? So AB upon BC should be sine 3 alpha upon sine alpha. Now we have to simplify this and get to this form and find what is the value of P. Okay. Now they have given us AB plus AB upon BC is 1 plus P cos P alpha. We have AB upon BC is sine 3 alpha by sine alpha. This becomes 3 sine alpha minus 4 sine cube alpha upon sine alpha, or 3 sine alpha. If I cancel the sine alpha from the numerator and the denominator, I get 4 sine square alpha. Now sine square alpha, to make it cos of something, can be written as 1 minus cos 2 alpha upon 2. So this becomes 3 minus 2 plus 2 cos 2 alpha, or 1 plus 2 cos 2 alpha. So compare with this, P is 2. a very neat problem, application of the law of sines here. So the value of P is 2. Question number 23. An inverse trigonometry problem, a little bit tricky. Let's see. Y is equal to sine inverse of sine 8 minus tan inverse of tan 10, etc., etc., etc. Now all this, we can't write sine inverse of sine 8 as 8, correct? Because we have to see that that angle lies in the region minus pi by 2 to pi by 2. So we have to see all those considerations. So to make that easy, I am going to write the values of 0 till 4 pi, and let us say, so 2 pi is somewhere here, pi is here, 3 pi is here, and also all the values of the intermediate, pi by 2, 3 pi by 2, 5 pi by 2 and 7 pi by 2. So this would be 1.57, right? This is 3.14, this would be 6.28, this is 9.42, and this is 12.56. And these are going to be a bit tricky. So 1.57 and a 3 point, so it is 4.71, and here I'll have 6 point, so another 3.14, so 7.85, and I'll get 10.99 here, roughly, just to know where each of these angles, each of these arguments are going to be. So first let us take sine inverse of sine 8. Now 8 is going to be here. See, remember these quadrants also. Huh? This is first quadrant, second quadrant, third, fourth, fifth, sorry, first quadrant again, second, third and fourth. So 8 is somewhere here, okay. Now 8 is in the second quadrant, and in the second quadrant sine theta is positive. So if I find this angle here, this is value 8. So this angle, that is 3 pi minus 8. If this is 8, this is 3 pi. This is 3 pi minus 8. This is an acute angle and it is going to be positive. So this can be written as sine inverse of sine 3 pi minus 8. This is an acute angle and therefore it is 3 pi minus 8. Let us go to tan inverse of tan 10. Now tan 10 is going to be somewhere here, right? This is 10. And this is the third quadrant, and third quadrant tan is going to be positive. So 10 minus 3 pi, this angle will be a positive value. So I can write tan inverse of tan 10 minus 3 pi. So this is an acute value, so it is 10 minus 3 pi. I hope you are following the logic. Third one, cos inverse of cos 12. Now you see cos 12 is right up here just before 12.56, and it's the fourth quadrant, and fourth quadrant it should be positive, and if cos is positive then its angle should be an acute angle, so I take only 4 pi minus 12. So this is nothing but cos inverse of cos 4 pi minus 12, which is 4 pi minus 12. Then let's move quickly. Secant inverse of secant 9. So again 9 is going to be somewhere here in this area 9, and secant of secant 9, because the second quadrant is going to be negative, so secant is negative. For secant the domain is 0 to pi, right? So I need an obtuse angle, an angle greater than 90. So I'll take 9 minus 2 pi. I won't take 3 pi minus 9 because that would give me a positive value for secant. So this can be written as secant inverse of secant 9 minus 2 pi. So this is just 9 minus 2 pi, right? Then cot inverse of cot 6. Again, now cot 6 is somewhere here, fourth quadrant, cot is negative, so again it needs an obtuse angle. So I keep cot inverse of cot 6 minus pi, this obtuse angle I take. So this is 6 minus pi. And then the last one, cosecant inverse of cosecant 7. 7 is going to be right here, first quadrant. So 7 minus 2 pi is fine. Cosecant 7 minus 2 pi. This is 7 minus 2 pi. So with all these values, let us substitute them back there. So 3 pi minus 8 minus of tan. So this minus 10 plus 3 pi, and then plus cos inverse, so plus 4 pi minus 12, then minus secant inverse, so minus 9 plus I get 2 pi, and then plus cot inverse of cot 6, that would be here 6 minus pi, so plus 6 minus pi, and then minus cosecant inverse, so minus 7 plus 2 pi. So if you see 3 pi, 10 pi, 12 pi, 11 pi and 13 pi. Then minus 8 minus 10, minus 18, minus 30, minus 39, minus 33 and minus 40. So the answer is 13 pi minus 40, which is given to be a pi plus b. So if 13 pi minus 40 is a pi plus b, a is 13 and b is minus 40. So a minus b, which is what they have asked, is 13 minus 40, which is 53. So the answer to this question is 53. The last but one problem. Let alpha and beta be two numbers where alpha is less than beta. The geometric mean of these numbers exceeds the smaller number alpha by 12. That is, the geometric mean alpha beta under root exceeds the smaller number by 12. And the arithmetic mean of the same numbers is smaller by 24 than the larger number beta. That is, the arithmetic mean alpha plus beta by 2 is smaller than beta by 24. So this equation is nothing but beta minus alpha is 48, right? So we have two equations and we just have to solve for alpha and beta. So the first equation, this gives us beta is 48 plus alpha, and here if I take this equation 1 and rewrite it like this, alpha beta is 12 plus alpha, right? So squaring on both sides, alpha beta is 144 plus 24 alpha plus alpha squared, and substitute beta is 48 plus alpha here. So 48 alpha plus alpha squared is equal to 144 plus 24 alpha plus alpha squared. Alpha squared is gone, so 24 alpha is 144, or alpha is 6. This gives us beta is 48 plus 6, 54. So mod of beta minus alpha is mod of 54 minus 6, which is 48. So the answer to this is 48. The last problem, very simple problem. F of x is 1 minus cos of 1 minus cos x by x power 4 is continuous everywhere, is k. That is the value of f of 0. What should be the value of f of 0? Basically they are asking us to find the limit of x tends to 0, 1 minus cos of 1 minus cos x upon x power 4. You must know that the limit x tends to 0, 1 minus cos x by x squared is nothing but 1 by 2. Remember this. So we'll use this here. What do we do? Let us bring in an expression 1 minus cos x the whole square multiplied by 1 minus cos x the whole square by x power 4. Okay, so here this limit x tends to 0. You see this itself is like 1 minus cos x by x squared. So this limit is 1 by 2, and here you have 1 minus cos x by x squared the whole squared. So this is nothing but 1 by 2 the whole squared. So it is 1 by 8. So k, it is continuous as k, the function is k, then the value of 10k is how much? So k is equal to 1 by 8 10k is 10 by 8, which is 1.25. So the answer to this problem is 1.25. That brings us to the conclusion of NTA test paper number 3. See you again in the next video with the solutions of NTA test paper number 4. This is Santosh Jood from Parth Tank Mathematics Institute, Ahmedabad.